So in my very first area, because people don't like religion very much, this is a small town, and the missionaries had knocked on every single door multiple times. It's been ages, and so we weren't having a lot of success because most people already knew who we were and really weren't interested in listening to more of what we had to say. And we were having a really rough time with it, and we were kind of tired of it. And we went to our ward mission leader, and we asked him, do you have any ideas that how we can, help people understand who we are and stuff like that, or something like that. How can we find people that are interested? And he told us the story of his missionaries. He said that they had gone into the forest and they had knelt down and prayed, and they were trying to find somebody who was ready, and so they did that, and then they went and started knocking on doors, and he was the third door that they knocked on. And this is the second time that he had ever met missionaries, and the first time he was going through a Buddhism phase, and he just didn't want to talk to the missionaries. But the second time he was in between, different religions and everything. And so when the missionaries came, it was perfect timing, and I can't remember how fast he decided he wanted to join the church, but he's been there ever since, and he's one of the strongest members in that branch now. So he told us that story, and so we're thinking to ourselves, well, maybe that's what we should do. And I kid you not, it was an early spring morning. There was snow on the ground, and we had gone into one of the national parks, which are everywhere. Basically everything that doesn't have a house on it is a national park, and beautiful. Anyways, and so we had gone into this forest, and we knelt down, and I said a prayer. Oh, and we each said our own prayers, and then we prayed together. I said a prayer and he said a prayer, and we prayed to find somebody who was ready. And then probably maybe a week, 2 weeks later, it wasn't our third door, but maybe a week or 2 weeks later, I crashed the car. And so we lost the car, and I was furious about it. I did not, because I lost my driving privileges in the process, and I was very mad about that. I could not bear the thought of going 2 years without driving a car. And and I hope that President Cannon is watching this right now, because he's probably laughing his head off. So we lost the car, and we had decided that the thing to do would be to grab the bikes or find bikes, ask the members for bikes, bike to the church in the morning, study at the church, and then start knocking on doors around the church, so that if we found somebody, it wouldn't be hard for them to go to church. And I did not realize this at the time. I was still upset about losing the car. But the fact that that happened led us to this situation where we could knock on this lady's door. And she had been kicked out of her apartment by her landlord and locked out, and she could not get in there anymore. And she could not take her stuff. And so she had gotten a new apartment, and she was in the process of painting it because it smelled like cigarettes. And, as soon as she started talking to us, we started asking her about what was going on. She completely opened up to us, and she was crying and everything. And so we thought to ourselves, we need to get the Relief Society president to come and talk to this woman. And we did. And so the Relief Society president, they hit it off right away, and she was so good to that woman, and she was such an amazing Relief Society president. And then I got transferred pretty much right after that happened, and so I didn't hear about this until later, but that woman ended up getting baptized about 3 months later, and It was the first one that they've had in quite a long time. I was in an area called Trois-Rivières, and it means 3 rivers. It's like sort of a delta thing. It's like 1, 2, 3 rivers. So we, not very much success, and it's a very poor city, and there's a pulp factory which made it smell like horrible. There's a paper mill, and paper mills smell terrible. And so anyways, we weren't having very much success. One time on the way back from a zone conference in Quebec City, we were like in the car, and we receive a text message that says, "This is a media referral, here's the address, etc." Name is Joseph Jordan. And so we are en route, back to our house, and we're like, you know what? And we had just come from the training, so we're all pumped up and ready to go do some missionary work. We're like, we need to contact this guy like immediately, like as soon as possible. So we go to the house and we get out of the car and we knock on the door, and he opens the door and he says, "Bonjour," and we say, "Bonjour," and he's like, "English?" And we're like, "Yeah, we speak English." And he's like, "Oh, okay, good." And so I hope that he's watching this too, because he would love this. He and his wife were just gems, absolute gems. They're like some of the nicest people we've ever met, and they fed us very regularly after we had met them. He had a friend who was a member of the church, and he gave him, and this friend didn't go to church anymore, but he had given him a picture of the second coming of Jesus Christ. Famous, I don't remember who painted it, but that famous picture. So he had that hanging up in his bedroom before we even got there. And we asked him, we're like, "How did you know, like, why the Mormons?" And he said, "Well, I really like Egyptian stuff. And I was reading some article on something Egyptian, and I saw an ad for Mormon.org, and I said, oh, why not?" And so he clicked on it, and they said, "Do you want missionaries to come over?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And so when we showed up, it was funny. He was like, "Man, that was fast." It was like a day. Not even a day had gone by, and we were there. And so we just remember thinking to ourselves, yes, we did it right. And immediately after that, we reported that we had contacted the referral. That's very important. You have to report that you contacted them. And so we did that. We just felt really good about ourselves because we did everything right. And yeah, the Jordan family, they were probably the one of the coolest people that or at least one of the coolest experiences that we had in that area. And so yeah, Diane and Joseph, they were super cool, and I still talk to them on Facebook sometimes. They're great, and they take care of the missionaries still, and they let the missionaries do service over at their house all the time, and they're just super solid. They're cool. I should mention that they got baptized while I was there. So that was also another reason why it was super cool, because I was there when we had found them, and I was there when they had got baptized, and that was a dream of mine ever since the beginning of my mission, was to find somebody and also be able to see them get baptized. And so that's selfish, and I know it's not about me, it's about their decision to join the church, and which is an amazing decision that they had chosen, and I'm just glad that I could be a part of it in such a huge way. And so yeah.